My name is Charlene Sanders Crowder, Charlene, Sanders, Sanders, Crowder, Crowder. I am the daughter of Mrs. Keita, Chita, Phipps, Phipps, Taylor, Taylor. My mother was the registered nurse of Dr. C.A. Dent for more than 30 years. I was raised in Riverside. My mother taught me a lot about being an Adventist and serving and doing all the things that we do in the community. I was born in Riverside, wow. Sanitarium, 1955.
Wow. Alrighty.
Delivered by Dr. Dent.
My goodness.
And was raised at Riverside, went to kindergarten, went to elementary school, all the things, raised in Sabbath school, I was going to say Sunday school, Sabbath school, the whole 9 yards. Went to Riverside Elementary. As a matter of fact, I grew up in the Pagoda of Medicine. When I was first born, he didn't have it yet. It wasn't built yet. And he had an office on Jefferson Street. Dr. C.A. Dent, that's right. And then he purchased a property next to the South Central Conference. And I watched it grow. And we moved on Youngs Lane, 605 Youngs Lane, where I grew up. So I was within walking distance of the church, of the school, of the South Central Conference, and the Pagoda of Medicine. I grew up with the Lightfords, the Moores, the Dudleys. It's a lot of lineage there where we all grew up together. It was a close-knit community. We had our own grocery store, our own service station, our own swimming pool. We had a laundry.
That was all located
on the campus of Riverside. Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. Everything. The school, the elementary school, it was right on the corner of Youngs Lane and Riverside Drive. And then when they expanded, I never got to see all that because I was long gone after that when we moved to Jackson. But I can remember all of us going to church on Sabbath day and being involved in everything. I was in the choir. I was in a quartet. I was the lead singer of the Golden Four, which had Deborah Walden,
wow,
Pamela Lightford, Debbie Millette, and myself. Wow. My father passed away and my mother remarried. And I think I was like 16. So it was like 72, somewhere in there. 71, somewhere in there, we moved to Jackson. My heart, because I was leaving home, where I was raised. Yeah. I loved Riverside. My mother did a lot of working in the hospital. I was a candy striper. I was a ward secretary. Wow. I had my first job at Dr. Dent's office where I took weights, blood pressures, took temperatures, urine specimens. I did all of that. I learned how to use the autoclave where we sterilized instruments. He had a revolutionary office back then because he had a space where you could do minor surgeries. A lot of people didn't know it was so big that it had a place downstairs where you could open up a dental office if you wanted to. On the other side was Dr. Dixon. At one time, my uncle, Dr. Joseph A. Ryan, was working out of the other side. And then he left and moved to Huntsville. He was married to my mother's sister, Muriel Phipps Ryan, or Ryan, I should say. So we go a long ways. My mother's father was the first Seventh-day Adventist minister in Trinidad.
Wow.
And there is a book about all of that my cousin wrote. His brother is the father of Wintley Phipps. And then there's another Phipps. And then there's another Phipps that was in Nashville, the New York Phippses. That were all brothers and they had these children. But that's how I was raised. So we have a lot of lineage in the Adventist community and in the Adventist churches. Long lineage. All of my uncles were pastors or ministers. St. Clair Phipps, Malcolm Phipps, my Uncle Freddie Phipps in Cincinnati.
Do you have a relative that played the piano?
Yes, Melita Herbert.
Oh my God.
Melita Phipps Herbert.
I think Melita's collect. I love
That's my
Melita.
mother's sister.
Oh. What?
Yeah,
Oh
she
my God.
was the oldest one out of the family.
Wow.
So of the choir at one time, and then Dr. Dixon came in,
Right.
and I've been around for a long time. Was baptized there.
Shut my mouth. I'm like, what?
And my first child was born at Riverside, at the new Riverside Hospital.
My God.
I worked in there as a ward secretary. I learned a lot about the health community and doing. A lot of people thought I was going to be a nurse, but by the time I grew up, I was I got kind of rebellious and wanted to do my own thing, but but I know a lot about it and was grateful for the experience and the life that I was raised in. Sing with the it was a chorale or I can't remember the exact name of it, but they used to travel and they recorded. And I used to do her hair for banquets and stuff when I was 8 and 10 years old.
Oh,
so as I got older, I wanted to continue doing that, and that's what I chose to do.
So
I
that's
started
what
going.
They know you by is your hair.
Yes, ma'am.
It's beautiful too.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I work hard at that. But I did that for a while until my mother became ill. And I shut my business down downtown to take care of her because I'm an only child, her only child. I have a brother, a half brother that was the dean of dentistry at Howard University for 30 years. His name is Dr. Charles Franklin Sanders Jr. So a lot of history in our family. And I'm so proud to be part of this interview and this collective unity that y'all are doing as far as bringing back recognition to Riverside Sanitarium and the church because it's a lot of history there. I've seen a lot of people come in and a lot of people go out. I remember the days. I'm a member of the original Pathfinders at Riverside where Mr. Chafin and Mrs. Emma Chafin started that. So I'm one of the original. I think it was me, Pam, Melvin, Wayne, Debbie Millette, Debbie Walden, Carol Lee Walden, Cheryl Chafin, Butchie Chafin, which is Samuel Chafin Jr. A whole lot of people were raised there. Raleigh, PA, all of us were Pathfinders. Yeah, so we go a long way back. I got my junior lifeguard certificate at Riverside, and that was under Mr. Collins and his wife. They were also Pathfinder leaders. And Mr. Chafin. And then I went on to work in the summers at different swimming pools. Me and Connie Simons. So it's a lot of lineage there. Clevie, all of that. I remember all of that. The wards, Miss Dorothy Patton. I remember the days where we could leave the school and go up to the cafeteria and eat lunch. I remember the apartments that they had behind the sanitarium. That's where my mother first lived when I was born. Pam and I have pictures of Pamela and I we've been together since we were born. Pictures of us as infants on a blanket behind those apartments.
Can I ask you this? And not to take
that's fine.
Marker where we are. Charles, are we going to do this all in one block? We won't. We don't want to stop and start, will we? Can we do it all in one block?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What I was going to ask you is go back to Mom. After 30 years, she must have been the head.
Yes, she was. She was the head. She was over everything at the office. Many days, Dr. Dent told her she could have easily been a doctor.
Wow.
She was smart enough to be a doctor.
Wow.
She was smart enough to run the office by herself.
Yeah, Dr. Dent said that.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Dent said that. Mrs. Johnson was there. Riley was there. My Aunt Jewel was there on the other side working with Dr. Dixon. But Dr. Dent really, when he built that office, he had most of the community. Matter of fact, that's how she met my father. My grandmother went to Dr. Dent. And she met my father from my father bringing my grandmother there. And so she went a long way. He was in California. She went to Glendale, got her nursing degree. Before then, she went to Andrews. She was raised in Cincinnati. and went from there to Andrews, and from Andrews to Glendale. And that's where she got her nursing degree. Met Dr. Dent, and he asked her to come to Riverside.
I'm going to ask you a heartstring question.
Yes,
now.
ma'am.
I knew out of the 42 year history that I've been here, it's wonderful that I knew the people that I speak about. I knew your mother, but not as intimately as I would like to have. What does it make you feel like to see that building sitting empty and useless right now?
It hurts.
Okay.
I want to cry every time. As a matter of fact, I did cry when I came home because I remember what it looked like and the status that it had in the community and what went along with that.
That's right.
The professionalism, the caring. I remember Dr. Dent doing house calls. I remember all of that because he came to when I got sick one time with pneumonia. I was in the hospital. I had a tonsillectomy and an appendectomy at the same time. At 10 years old, I was also in the hospital with pneumonia. My mother worked as charge nurse sometimes at Riverside also, even though she worked at the office all week. So I got a lot of experience and knew where everything was, every nook and cranny of the hospital and the office. And it hurts me to see it just depreciate like that because it was something to see. Nobody had anything like that back then. Nobody had the thought to build anything of that nature at that time.
He was far ahead of
Yes, ma'am. Way ahead of his time.
What would you like to see happen? I know when I came to Nashville, Dr. Dent was my doctor. Dr. Dixon had also been my doctor. The surgery I had done, Dr. Dent did it. So I was intimately involved with both of them. And I drive past that building, I said, what a waste. I
would like to see someone take it and renovate it. Some of the younger doctors. Because it's a landmark.
Yes, it
really,
is.
When you think about it, it really is. And I hate to see it just go to waste like that. I really do. Dr. Dent had big status in Nashville at that time. People to this day, matter of fact, I was at home in Jackson with my husband's family and was talking about where I was raised because they live here in Nashville. And I brought up Dr. Dent and they said, oh, I know him. He was my doctor. And then I showed them a picture of my mother and she was my nurse. I said, in a small world. So, it goes a long way. The lineage of the hospital, the doctor's office, and Riverside goes a long way. It had a big upstanding ranks in the community of Nashville back then. Because at that particular time, it was hard for us to go anywhere and get service. So a lot, other than Meharry. So those that could not afford that would come to Riverside. And there were people that would come a long way to come to Riverside and have, like my aunt Leola, Malcolm Phipps' wife. She came and delivered, I think she had Sherry and Carla and Marsha. I remember she had Carla and Marsha at Riverside. And my cousin St. Clair Jr. was born at Riverside. So a lot of people came from a long way to come and have their children at Riverside or had any medical procedure done. And so when it closed, it broke my heart. And then when the old church, they said it burned down or something, that really broke my heart because that's my mother directed weddings there. She was the Sabbath school superintendent there. I was in weddings there, a lot of weddings. So it goes way, way back. I was baptized there. That was my home.
I'm going to say this, and Paul, I want you to interject as well. Part of yesterday's meeting, they have finalized on the wording for the marker that is to be unveiled. They're saying now that it looks like the date will probably be in August. As soon as we know it, I'm going to make sure you are an integral part of that day.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm helping with the program committee. That's going to be big, big, big. We don't want just people to be a part. We want you to speak of what you're telling us.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's
I would love to.
A day in this community that would happen.
I don't see why the But go to medicine is not a historical marker too.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
That's
They
what I'm
just
saying.
bring
It's a
that up.
historical landmark because nothing in Nashville could compare to that
Yeah.
when it was built.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you know
It
what
was
they
way ahead of its time.
discovered was the wording originally. You would have thought that Dr. Dorothy Brown was the only doctor that worked there.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that they took the initiative. We took the initiative. Hey, that wasn't the way it was. They had the wrong date for when Riverside closed. But this is why I want to make it an important part to say that this work is not based on denomination.
No, ma'am.
It's not based on who's better than who.
No, ma'am.
It's about people that gave their lives to make the community what it was.
Yes, ma'am.
And you speaking here of it, being a living witness
Yes,
to
ma'am.
what it was,
Mhm.
is incredible.
Mhm.
And that's what we want people that didn't know Keita,
Mm-hmm.
they'll know her through you. And those that knew her will remember that.
Mhm.
So, Paula,
Yeah,
I got
mean,
goosebumps.
I do too. I mean, we need to tell our own history. We don't need somebody else.
No, ma'am.
Telling it.
No,
No.
ma'am.
Getting all the
It's a lot of history there. A lot of history. A lot of people. There were other doctors that came to Riverside that you would think were only at Meharry. Dr. Weaver, Dr. Bernard,
Mhm.
who was an OBGYN. He was my doctor, as a matter of fact, for my first child. A lot of other doctors that were there. It wasn't just, like you say, Dorothy Brown, which I loved.
We all love her.
I remember her. Her daughter and I grew up together. But there were other doctors that played a big part in Riverside blooming into
Most
the place that it was.
Mhm.
That came
Most
long
certainly.
before them. So
Yeah.
I believe in giving them their just dues.
Yes, right. That's
Because it's a lot of history there that people really don't know about. That goes a long way back.
Mhm.
right.
My mother was on the cover of Message magazine in her nurse's outfit with her cape and her hat. I still have her cape today.
Oh, wow.
These are things that when we want to do a collectible of cherished items that you need to
I will bring
you
it.
need to take pictures,
Yes, ma'am.
all the artifacts. I'm going to go back to what you said too. When I first started working with the society, and I'm a mouth person.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to people on the streets, hey, you looking good today.
I do
Every
too.
time. I do too. Ain't no shame in my game. But what I found would happen every time somebody would mention Riverside Hospital,
Mhm.
I don't care who it was,
Mhm.
what color they were,
Mm-hmm.
they could draw back to
Mhm.
an experience. And I says, my Lord, this gold mine has finally been unearthed.
If we could only get it back.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you know, and
it was a lot to.
I believe it.
We had many good days there. I remember the Pascals when they came, the Andersons when they came. It's been so many people to come and go. The Humphreys, the Normans.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people came through Riverside
Mm-hmm.
on their journey to other places.
You're
Or
right.
and in connection with the conference office. Too,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
suppose.
Also,
Mhm.
yes, you're absolutely right.
And the school.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yeah, you almost can't separate them
Right.
because they're one entity
Right.
that just happen to have branches.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Mrs. Brantley taught at the school. Mrs. Pascal taught at the school. One of the Sears, Helen Sear, taught at the school.
Mhm.
Who else was there before I left? Quite a few people. And then I left there and went to Madison Academy.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I didn't finish there. I decided I wanted to go to a different school.
Mhm.
And my
What
mother
was your
let me.
experience like there at Madison?
In Madison, well, I knew that we had to pay and the other kids didn't.
Mm-hmm.
The white community didn't, but we had to pay.
Isn't it?
We had to buy our books. Some of our books were $100.
Mm.
And that angered me. We got treated a little different because
Mm.
out of 130 students, I would say there would be like 2 or 3 of us to each class, like 2 or 3 for the freshmen or 2 or 3 for the sophomore and so forth and so on. And I noticed that we had to pay $100 and some odd dollars a month where they didn't. Yes, ma'am.
Way then?
Way back then. In the
Oh, my
60s.
own
Yes,
God.
ma'am. I kid you not. Because I started going there in '69.
Well, the bottom line is they didn't want you there.
No, they did not want us there.
I was just waiting. I was itching for you
We
to
were
say
called. I remember one
Mhm,
calling us the
mhm.
N-word,
that.
and Deborah Walden came and got me, and she said, "Charlene, will you tell?" And I had to explain to her that anybody could be that. You know, you could be that. Don't mess around and call us that because we pay to go here,
Oh yeah.
and we deserve to be here. So we had to get that straight. But we were treated differently. We were talked to differently by certain teachers. And I kind of got tired of it. And if anybody knows of Phipps, we're outspoken people. And I just say what I have to say and keep it moving. And I don't mean any disrespect or any harm, but you're not going to disrespect me either.
Right.
That's one thing my father taught me when I was a child. But I do believe in giving my elders their respect, people in authority their respect. But I expect that in return. And I believe that all of us deserve that. In these days, it seems like we're reversing. But the difference is today we know better. You know, and there's some things we will not put up with. I will not put up with.
Thank you.
I'm not going to. If it means me losing my job or whatever, I'm not going to.
When I heard the word Madison come from your lips, I said, I gotta get it. Because I knew,
Yes, ma'am.
without a doubt, whether you said it or not, what you had to have gone through.
Yes, ma'am.
We interviewed Benita, Joyce, Beverly. And at first they were hesitant about talking about saying about medicine. I said, that's history too.
Yes,
Say
it is.
And boom, when I heard you say medicine, I wanted you orally to say what your experience was
Yes,
like.
ma'am. We went through discrimination. We went through other things. And I always asked my mother, why? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to pay this when they're going for free?
See?
We're all Adventists. What's the discrepancy here? So, and that was when I was 14. So,
And that probably was when Riverside was still a part of the Kentucky 10 Conference. Before it became under South Central Conference?
no, it was South Central then. I do believe.
Okay.
I might be wrong, but I do believe it was still South Central.
Okay.
But you might can check into that because that was like '69 when I started going.
Okay.
Under either conferences. Was wrong.
Yeah, it was still wrong. I didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it, and I did not agree with what was going on and how we were treated and how we were looked down upon, and because I said what I had to say, how I got thrown out of a biology classroom.
Ostracized.
Yes, ma'am.
Big time.
I wasn't the last person in the door, but I had to go back and close the door. You see what I mean?
Oh, I do.
Because I was the black one. So I went through several things there. But thank God I survived.
Yeah.
You know, because I know I have a God that sits high and looks low and takes care of everything for me as long as I allow him to. You know, sometimes you have to speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful today. I'm grateful to know today that I've been through some things, and I hate to see my children, my grandchildren go through some things that I went through. I can remember when we first moved to Jackson, having to go to we went somewhere to eat or something, and this man said he wasn't going to be served by no end, and I said, wait a minute, and my daughter saw this, and I thought she never had to deal with that. See, I remember living here and was right off of Dickinson Road called Burger Boy. My father took me to get a burger, and we had to go to the window black that was painted black. And I said, Daddy, let's go in. Because everybody was sitting at the bar. And they were getting their burgers. And I said, I want a milkshake too. And he said, baby, we can't go in there. And it broke me. That's when I realized I was black. Yes, ma'am. I was 10 years old.
Community with
everybody.
Yeah. There was no discrimination there, and everybody was community and family and then when you go. Yeah, so when you go out, when you leave the confines of the Riverside campus,
yes, ma'am.
Then
that's where you are exposed to another world. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You know, interestingly, the church that I'm helping out this morning, under Sonny Dixon, his term for his sermon was entitled "We Are Scarred." talked about how he got this gash on his knee trying to be cute because he didn't want to wear no itchy wool trousers that was part of his suit. He'd be itching. He went to jump over a banister and created this big, huge gash.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so embarrassed. People didn't laugh at him, but everybody saw him do it. But here's what I'm saying is that we have these gashes
Yes, ma'am.
that created these scars.
Yes, ma'am.
Until Jesus comes,
That's
we
right.
will have those scars.
Yes, ma'am.
And what's important about that scar and those scars that you have in terms of how you relate your life now? What's important about that scar?
It with those things as I grew older,
Mm-hmm.
I knew were no fault of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to deal with those situations I let God handle stuff like that now. I will let you know what I think. I will let you know that I don't appreciate you disrespecting me.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I let God handle those things. And I pray for those people. Because if I don't, I will mess me up.
That's
having a
beautiful.
resentment against somebody I can't change. You know, so I have to change myself and work on myself.
Right.
And the way I react to things. Not act, but react. You know, because you can, or should I say, not react, but act. Because if you react to something really quick, then in the long run, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
You know, but if you act on something and handle it in a different manner, I've learned that most of the time, because most of the people that I would have a resentment against are gone on with their life and they don't even care.
Well, they're gone.
No, they're gone. Oh, they're gone. Most of the people that have done me dirty, that I was there for, that I went out of my way to help, and I've seen it happen time and time again. I have had to pray for God to give them everything in life that I wanted.
My.
And so it would remove it. And after a time, it's okay. I can look at you and I can smile and I can give you a hug, you know. And but the most part, that's right. And I keep on moving, and I try to help them heal a little bit.
Yeah.
But I thank God that they're there, they're not gone. But I don't have to deal with them in that manner. I can handle it now. I can deal with it in a different manner and look at them and smile. So, okay, Lord, thank you. I'm grateful. I'm still here because a lot of people are dead and gone. And for some reason, God has kept me here, and I'm so grateful.
Amen.
God has been good to me.
Charlene, can you tell us who the pastor was that was at Riverside Chapel Church when you grew up?
The pastor's under how many?
Yeah, I mean over 16 years. It probably was more than one than
Woo, okay.
Well, let's say this. Which one do you remember? What's the pastor that was the most outstanding that you remember the most, that had the most influence over not necessarily you, but maybe your peer group, who you guys looked up to, who you respected more?
Elder Butler.
That's LaCount?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Elder Butler.
Okay.
Was one of them. That was one of the main ones. It's been so long ago. When I was coming up as a child, there were so many pastors that came through, but for some reason, he stuck there. And that's when I got into my teenage years, when I got a little older. I do remember him most of all. Him and his brother was there too, right? Yes.
Seems like LaCount was affiliated with the youth organization.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the conference.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember. So he had a special love.
Yes, ma'am.
For that.
Yes, ma'am, he did. And I remember him very well. It's so many people that have been through there that I remember.
Who baptized you?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Elder Pastor. I mean,
that's all right. Somebody did.
I think it was. I was 10 at the time.
Okay.
I was 10 at the time, and I'm trying to remember. Who was the pastor? I don't think Butler was there then.
If it comes to you later, we'll edit it.
I will try to get that and because they have to have a record of it somewhere. I don't know if it burned up or not, but I know Pam and I Melvin. We all grew up. We used to have a lot of fun as kids. We all grew up together. We would go camping. We would be at the Lightford's house and hang out. I was there every Friday with the Lightfords because my mother always worked late at the office at night.
We're
So
going to kind of do a wrap on this. Is there anything that you want to say in the next 5 minutes or so that we've not tapped? Let me just tell you, you are a certified grill. I'm telling you, you are. You tell stories beautifully. We've enjoyed how you've given the account to us. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to say, or?
I just want to say that there are a lot of people that have been there that were the foundation of Riverside, like the McDonald's, like Sam and Alma Williams. Alma used to be this over the top lady with these big furs on and was extremely sharp, and they lived on the campus. The Lesters, Mrs. Durham, she would take us in gathering every year. A lot of foundation there that people have forgotten about. Because Melvin and them will always say, Charlene, how do you remember that? Because it was cherished in my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I cherished that part in my heart. I remember when this guy, what was his name? His last name was Hale. He got burned up from the steam lines that ran all the way down to the laundry. And there was a break in they were rebuilding the sidewalks, and he fell into it. And he jumped out and ran. And I remembered that with his legs burnt all the way to the Benson's house, Ricky Benson's house. So it's a lot of things that people don't talk about that went on. I remember as a child, my mother going through a thing with with being the superintendent of Sabbath school because she had a wedding band on.
Oh my.
Yes, ma'am. But she wouldn't take it off because her husband gave it to her. I remember different little things about that. But I do remember, most of all, the love that all of us felt from being in a community together. We were all raised together. Everybody knew everybody. They could tell on you, whoop you, whatever. And it was okay. Now somebody wants to fight you about talking to their child.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, I remember that if I got in trouble, my mother would know about it before I got home. Connie Simons was my partner in crime.
Canetta?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, she's still a partner in crime. I tell you.
We went through a lot together, but I do know that most of all, Riverside was the special place to be at. As a child, it really was. A beautiful campus. Beautiful campus. Beautiful summer days. Beautiful azaleas. Beautiful dogwoods. Everything was so pretty. And it was just pristine, picturesque every time you went by there. And I just remember growing up in a lovely place like that where people truly cared about you. Where people taught you the word. Where you learned the word. Where we had hay rides. Where we had socials. Nobody does that anymore. That's where we got to know each other. That's how we socialized with each other. We did all of that together. So we don't see that anymore. And I would love to see that come back. I really would. Riverside will forever hold a special place in my heart and the heart of those of us who grew up together.
Okay.
That's why they're straight back to Riverside on Facebook.
Charlene, Paul and I, what do you say about this? Has this been a treat?
Absolutely.
I thank you.
so
No, it's been a treat for
much.
me. I appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, ma'am. My
and
pleasure.
Like I said before, you'll get a chance to look at this, and before anything is out there, we want the people that have participated to see what their stories look like. And if you think of anything that you may want to just drop in, call me.
Okay.
And we'll connect you to the right people to say it.
All right.
So you can send it to us by text or email, but be sure to let us know. Thank you once again.
I
God
certainly do
bless
thank you.
You are welcome.
God bless you all.